Afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be watching from, and welcome to AMN Healthcare International Live's show, Onwards and Upwards, where we discuss everything a global healthcare worker needs to know about living and working in the United States. I'm your host, Danielle Friedman, coming to you live from AMN Healthcare International, where we are the largest company to offer you both international staffing and international direct hire options all across the United States. And today we have our special once a month immigration Q&A. We at AMN International believe in giving you the opportunity to ask your questions and figure out your path to get to your American dream. So this is your time. So please pop your questions in the chat. We are going to be bringing on legal experts. This is your time to ask them whatever questions you may have, whatever burning ideas you might have. So please feel free to pop them in the chat. Please also let me know where you're watching from. I love to see where our viewers are watching from. We have people coming from all over the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to Davina, to Gabriel, Mohammed coming from Oman, Koma coming from Zambia. We have got lots of people coming from all over, and I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions this morning. So please feel free to put them in the chat. And without further ado, let's bring out our guest experts. Good morning, Chris and Mike.
Nice Good morning.
Thank you guys for being here again for our once a month Q&A. I know we're going to get lots and lots of questions. Let's take a minute to, number one, wish Mike Hammond a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
I see the birthday balloons in the background. Yes. Hopefully you did something fun to celebrate.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's take a moment to introduce ourselves. Mike, birthday boy, why don't you go first?
Sure. My name's Mike Hammond. I'm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been doing immigration law for over 30 years. I had just celebrated my 31st birthday this week, and so happy to be here.
Mike, you're younger than me. Wow.
I know. I don't look younger than you, but it's a math thing. Yeah.
You look younger than me. You look great. You look great, Mike. Happy birthday. All right. Thanks. We'll turn to Chris next.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Chris Masilla here, Masilla Unkenholt. I've been doing this since the late 1990s, and looking forward to our monthly call.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris and Mike, for being here today. We always appreciate your expertise and advice. If you have questions for Chris and Mike, they are the top immigration experts in this industry, and they are happy to take your questions. Okay, so Chris and Mike, let's start with what happened for May, or I suppose what didn't necessarily happen, but we'll get into that. Mike, birthday boy, let's start with you. What happened for the May Visa Bulletin?
Basically nothing. We had movement of a couple of weeks in the India EB3 category. And other than that, everything stayed the same. So status quo. Now, that wasn't terribly surprising because as we've seen the last couple of years, the movement seems to be quarterly on the final action date chart. So we weren't terribly surprised, but disappointed is still fair because we still need a few more months of movement just to get to the date for filing chart that was established back in October. But basically, as of right now, just status quo.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So status quo for now, which maybe wasn't super surprising to everybody, but definitely felt a bit disappointing. I think we were all hoping for some movement, but hopefully we will see some movement as we progress throughout the year. So Chris, can you give us I'm going to ask you your best thoughts on what you think the rest of the year is going to look like? I know we're going to get lots of questions like that in the chats.
Yeah, I think anyone who's hoping for some dramatic change in the processing times, the Visa Bulletin, is unfortunately going to be disappointed. I think, here we are in mid-April. We just had the May Visa Bulletin. There's 4 left: June, July, August, and September. my guess is that at best we'll just see a few weeks movement in aggregate over all of that time. And unfortunately, I think that's probably what's gonna happen the rest of the fiscal year.
Okay, so just to clarify, so the fiscal year starts in October. So that's why we say there's just a few more months. Okay. Mike, what about you? Any thoughts on predictions for what the rest of the year might look like?
Well, we're going to reverse roles here because normally Chris is more optimistic and I'm the pessimist, but he already gave you only a couple of weeks through the rest of the fiscal year. So I'm going to go the other direction. And I'm going to say we're going to get up to March 1st, 2023, which gets us 2 months. But if I were putting money on this, I'd be betting on Chris's side.
Well, we like an optimist. You never know.
Right.
You never know. So let's say we get a couple more weeks between now and the rest of the year. What are you both thinking will happen come October when the year resets? Or is that anybody's guess? Chris,
I think it's anybody's guess. The October one's always important because, as Mike just alluded to, we all get focused on that dates of filing chart. On the final action chart, which is of course the most important chart. But the second chart, the dates of filing, is a bit of a crystal ball into the future. Mike, for instance, is thinking maybe there's a chance that it moves up to March 1st, 2023. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be wildly surprised on that, but as Mike said, I'd bet the under on it. I'm thinking, just a few more weeks for the remainder of the fiscal year. Why the October one's important is because that dates of filing chart will surely not be for the EB3 March of 2023. It will be some point into the future. This year, if we go back and we look at what the October chart was, which we can do, if we look at what the October 2024 Visa Bulletin chart was, just so that everybody can get a bit of perspective, we were at, on the final action chart, we were in November 15th of 2022, which means the entirety of this fiscal year until now, which is October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. It has moved from 15 November 22 to where are we? January 1, January 1, 2023. So in aggregate, it's only moved 6 weeks. So that obviously isn't a great marker. And when we look at that October 2024 chart, it was 15 November, and the dates of filing chart was March 1st, 2023. So what that tells us is over the course of this fiscal year, and we're 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year, believe it or not, almost 2/3, a little more than half, let's say, through the fiscal year, it's moved less than half of that November 15th to March 1st, that aggregate roughly 100-day period. And so, if we were to extrapolate and say that that's what we're going to see next year, even if Mike's correct, and I certainly hope he is, that we end this year roughly March 1st, 2023, we still might not expect that dates of filing chart to be more than, 100 days more, so that'd be something like July, August of 2023 would be the dates of filing chart. And the final action chart would be, wherever it is, February or March of 2023. Maybe even not quite as good if you're more of a pessimist on this. So putting all that together, I would think that the October one will be roughly where this year ends. So I'm going to say something like February 2023, whether that's February 1st or February 20th or February 28th. That level of precision, anybody who claims to have any idea, including anybody who works at the State Department for that matter, is just fooling themselves. So, we have to speak in broader terms. But what will be more interesting, I think, to people who really look at this, like Mike and I, is whether that dates of filing is only 100 days into the future, which again would be something like June or July or maybe August of 2023, or whether it goes, into 2024, which is candidly what it's been doing in all years up until this year.
Okay, very interesting. So, Mike, same question to you. And can you maybe explain why this is even happening? I'm sure a lot of people are kind of watching and feeling like, why is this happening? What is it? Just the demand is higher than the supply? Is that what it really is?
Yeah, it's honestly that simple. We use the term retrogression all the time, but the idea is simply that the supply is X number, and it's a much smaller number than the demand. And the demand is higher, which then forms a line. And the line, or the Q, is what we refer to as retrogression. So as long as the demand in the U.S. stays high, and the supply stays the same, which it has for years, then we're going to see these lines. The lines that we see now, we didn't see for a couple years due to the COVID situation and its effect on family-based visas. And then there have been a few other times in history relative to when the demand went way down, say following the 2008, 2009 depression, recession, whatever you want to call it. But historically, the line has been where it is now, 2.5, running into the neighborhood of 3 years, kind of a line. And until most of us believe that the demand in the U.S. is not going to change. If anything, the demand is going to continue to increase as people get older. Not me, but other people get older, need more care, and as we have continued retirements in the industry, that the demand, at least for RNs, is going to continue to be strong. So unless the supply is changed, and the supply hasn't been changed in many years, then we're going to continue to see this. And there's obviously efforts to change on the supply side by increasing the visa numbers, or by doing other things that have the same practical effect as increasing the visa numbers, exempting visas and things like that. The climate for immigration, pro-immigration relief here in the U.S. Is, let's just say, not good right now. So anything imminent is probably not very likely. So.
Okay. Well, I'm sure for a lot of nurses who are watching, that might feel a bit negative and a bit anxiety ridden, because I can imagine you're sitting, you're wanting to come, and you're feeling like, why is there no movement? But there's a couple of takeaways that I'm taking from what Chris and Mike have said that I just want to hone in on. Number one, this has happened before. So Chris and Mike have experience with retrogression, as do we at AMN Healthcare. We know how to handle it. We know how to get you through it. And retrogression doesn't mean that you cannot come. It just means a delay. So it just might take a little bit longer than what you were seeing during COVID times, but not necessarily longer than what was really normal before COVID times. And the other thing is that the demand is still there. There is still a huge need for nurses. I woke up this morning and I saw this article in Becker's, 40% of nurses exit by 2029. There is still going to be a huge demand. There's predicted huge shortages by 2030. So if this is still a dream for you, pursue it. Now is your time. Get your place in line. Get your priority date. Get started. So those were some of the takeaways I was taking from what you were both saying. So let's turn to some of the questions in the chat. I know we had lots of questions coming in while we were having our discussion about predictions and why this is happening. So let's go to some of these questions. I see some happy birthday messages for you, Mike, so make sure to check those out. So we have a question from lots of questions. We have a question from Colleen. So Colleen is asking, is there an age limit for H-1Bs? So I see we got a lot of questions about H-1Bs in general. So Chris, can you take this and just explain to us what is an H-1B, and is there an age limit to apply for an H-1B?
So there's no age limit, so that's the good news. You do need to have a bachelor's degree for the purposes of this conversation. We'll talk as a nursing degree, so you need a bachelor's degree and nursing degree. But that's the easy part. The vast majority of the clients that we work on, AMN works on, and I suspect Mike works on, the nurses have the bachelor's degree in their home country. So that part's not very difficult. What's much more difficult is the American employer has to require a bachelor's degree in nursing for the position. And, we certainly have some clients for who do have that requirement. But it's a thin minority of the clients. The reality in the United States is the entry-level nursing positions, for the most part, can be done with an associate's or diploma, 2 or 3 year nursing degree, not a full 4-year bachelor's degree. And so again, the fact that you qualify for the bachelor's degree, that's great, but many nurses qualify for the bachelor's degree. The much harder part is finding a U.S. employer whose standard for entry into that position is a bachelor's degree. And, those clients that we have, that they tend to have many nurses who foreign nurses who are going to meet those positions. They're challenged more by, just how many slots they have in those rare positions.
Okay, so the H-1B is a temporary work visa that some nurses may be eligible for, assuming they have a bachelor's. But on the flip side, their employer has to qualify to hire them as an H-1B, and not necessarily everybody's going to qualify. Does that sound right?
That's right.
Okay. So I see lots of questions about H-1Bs. So Mike, I see a question from Brenz and Galeo. They're saying, I'm watching from the Philippines. Hi to Brenz and Galeo. Would it be possible for an H-1B visa holder to be petitioned by his or her current employer under the EB3 visa? If yes, can you please explain this process?
Sure. So first of all, we have to go back to a little bit about what Chris mentioned, that not every nurse, not every hospital, or not every nurse position in a particular hospital qualifies for an H-1B. And the reason why that's important is because when hospitals are sponsoring international nurses under the EB3 program, they tend to use a generic RN job description that covers all units in that hospital. That's consistent with what the Department of Labor does and consistent with most employers. That particular EB3 job description does not meet H-1B standards. So back to Brenna's question. Brenna's now here in the US, let's pretend, on an H-1B, and let's say Brenna was brought in to work in a NICU unit, okay? And the NICU unit at that hospital requires at least a BSN, let's just say, for our hypothetical purposes here. Brenna's sitting there wanting to do an EB3 case. If the hospital already has an EB3 program, Brenna's not going to qualify under that program because Brenna has made a representation, and the hospital has as well, to the USCIS, that Brenna is not a generic RN working at any unit in the hospital. Brenna's in a very unique unit, i.e. the NICU unit. So the hospital is likely going to need to file a new prevailing wage request for Brenna under the NICU unit job description. That's going to take 6 to 7 months to get a prevailing wage back. It's a union hospital. It's going to take a little longer, and then Brenna can file. A lot of hospitals, a lot of my clients that sponsor anyone for H1s, not just nurses, but anyone, will often require a waiting period before they'll start a green card case. Some are 6 months, some are a year. So it's possible that Brenna comes in under an H1 for the NICU unit. Her hospital makes her wait a year before they'll initiate the green card process. Then Brenna goes through a 6-month waiting for a prevailing wage determination, and then Brenna files. So in some respects, Brenna getting here through an H1B for the NICU unit is fast, much faster than waiting in the line for an EB3. However, Brenna's not now getting a priority date established for a year and a half, maybe a little longer. And so Brenna might be actually overall delayed in getting her green card compared to going the EB3 route. So it is possible. It's common, Brenna, but it is there are some things, and it's not as simple as coming in the hospital immediately filing for you.
Okay, so some good information from Brenz over there. On the flip side, Mike, what if the hospital had their prevailing wage already when they filed that H-1B, when Brenz was in the Philippines? Could they do a dual filing? Is that possible? Is that allowed?
They could, as long as that PWD in that EB3 filing matches with the NICU.
Mm.
But if it doesn't match with the NICU, no.
Got it. Okay. So there are some nuances that they definitely need to be aware of.
Yes, because keep in mind the prevailing wage is based upon the job you're doing and the educational requirement. And for hospitals who get a traditional EB3 PWD, it's based on having an associate's degree or a diploma plus NCLEX passage or a state license. Whereas an H-1B, that's not sufficient. And so you can't have an EB3 case that says, I'm going to do this job, which does not meet the H-1B standards, when at the same time you're trying to argue that I need an H-1B visa that does meet the standards. And so you're inconsistent, and that will be problematic for you.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so some good things for Brents to consider. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, so I see Melody has a question. Melody says, what are the requirements to apply and what units of experience are you looking for? So I'm going to take this one. So Melody, I think that's a great question to ask what we're looking for. So at the baseline, you need an NCLEX to apply. You need to have passed the NCLEX exam. But the market right now is definitely very competitive. There is still a high demand for international nurses, but you also want to make yourself the most marketable candidate possible. So what does that mean? That means, number one, getting experience. So if you can get experience in an acute care hospital, that's going to really help your resume. Number two, if you can take your English, that's something else that you can make yourself more marketable. These are all things that you could be doing while your application is being filed, and you could be getting more experience. You could be passing your English. So that's something else that you might want to consider. And then those are sort of the things that we will be looking for right when you apply. And then you can be also working on other things while you are waiting during retrogression. So if you are interested in applying, our recruiters can also help you. They are super knowledgeable. They've been doing this for a long, long time, and they can walk you through what kind of requirements we are looking for. So if you're interested, please feel free to apply at amnhealthcare.com/international, and we can help walk you through what the process looks like, how to make yourself a marketable candidate. We also have some videos that we've done on our Onwards and Upwards live shows. We can drop the links in the chat, and you can go back and look at exactly what our director of recruitment has said. So hopefully that is helpful, Melody. Okay, so Chris and Mike, we got lots of questions. So Chris, I see we have some questions about the embassies. So Kathy is asking, what would be the issue as to why embassies are not issuing interview dates to those who are current? So is this an issue that you're seeing, Chris?
I can't say that we're seeing it on any large scale, but there may be a particular embassy that has a particular issue. I think this is a classic case of you want to contact your attorney to see if there's anything specific either about your embassy that could be backing it up. Otherwise, we would just chalk it up to either just high volume at that embassy or just, and this is just an unfortunate reality of this area of law, just sort of general laziness and incompetence at some of these embassies.
Okay, so best advice, reach out to your attorney. See if there's something that maybe is holding you up.
Yeah, and Danielle, I apologize. I put this on our chat. I do have to leave here in about 5 more minutes. I've got a hard out at the 1:30 hour.
Okay, no problem. Then we'll ask you all the questions for the next 5 minutes. All right, so I see we have a question from Colleen. So Chris, we'll turn to you. So Colleen is asking, so I'm an RN in the USA who overstayed my visa. Should I apply for an H-1B visa or an EB-3? Is that an option for Colleen?
So this one, yeah, first of all, and this is unquestionably true, you need to talk to an immigration attorney. You should not be trying to seek an answer to this very complex question in this kind of format. If you've overstayed your visa, you may be ineligible to apply for an H-1B or an EB-3, which is why you need to talk to an immigration attorney. So number one, talk to an immigration attorney. Number two, you don't apply for an H-1B visa. An employer applies for your H-1B visa. As we mentioned a little earlier in this webinar, there's actually only very few jobs that meet that standard. And so it may be very difficult to find an employer who's going to sponsor you for an H-1B visa. In terms of an EB-3 visa, that may be something that's available to you, but unless you happen to have had an old priority date, which is pretty rare, you can apply for an EB-3 visa, but you're going to have to leave and go back to your home country to wait out the 2.5 years or so of the retrogression before you are current. So you're not going to be able to stay here even if you apply for an EB-3 visa. But again, point one, you need to talk to an immigration attorney, and you probably need to talk to them very quickly.
All right, there you go, Colleen. Okay, so Chris, before we lose you, I actually have a question. I was just thinking, I know we kind of touched on this, Mike touched on this, the legislation that has been trying to be passed over the last few years, HWRA. I know your face is kind of looking a little, yeah, that one.
No, yeah, HWRA. So just to bring everybody up to speed, so we've had that introduced into the last 2 Congresses. A congressional term lasts 2 years in America. The most recent congressional term just ended a few months ago, December 31st. The HWRA granted a one-time allotment of 25,000 nursing visas into the EB-3 system, which is a legalistic way of saying it would have eliminated retrogression for EB-3 nurses for at least some time, a couple of years probably. And while we did get a lot of congressional support, we did not obviously get the bill passed. I do know that there's an active discussion amongst congressional staffers, senatorial staffers, and the industry as to what legislation they are going to advocate for in 2025. That decision has not been made yet. I've been on 2 calls about this week, and I've got another planned in a little later today. So I can tell you that I'm confident that something will be introduced in the near term, but the details of that are still being worked out.
Okay, well, our fingers are crossed, and we will see what happens as the year progresses. But thanks for the update.
All right, Danielle.
Thanks for being on today. We appreciate your time.
Have a great weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
too. All right, Mike, it's just me and you, my friend. So every hard question comes straight to you.
Great. Exciting.
Exciting. Okay, so we have got lots of questions in the chat, so we're just going to rapid fire them at Mike. Okay, so AccuPill, although I'll take some of them. So some of the heat will be off you.
Good.
Okay, so AccuPill says, I'm a Canadian. I recently just passed my NCLEX. Looking to start up my career in the US. Do I need to have a work experience in Canada before reaching out to AMN? Okay, well, congratulations, AccuPill, that you recently passed your NCLEX. That's very exciting. So I guess it depends if you are eligible for the TN visa or not. My best suggestion to you would be to apply at our website. If you are a Canadian citizen that can take advantage of the TN visa, this may be an option for you. So please feel free to apply to our website. Our recruiters can speak with you. But generally, I would say while you are waiting for that to happen, you should also start looking at getting some work experience because as we've said, this is a competitive environment and you want to make yourself the most marketable candidate that you can. Okay, so Mike, we have a question from Michael. Michael says he is from Kenya. His priority date is October of 22. His case was complete in September of 2024. You know what? I think he maybe had another question about not having his interview date at the embassy. So I might have to go back and scroll up for that one before we answer Michael's question. So Michael, put a pin in that. We're going to get back to you. I need to find your first question. And we have another question from Andy. Andy's asking, may I know the difference between H-1B cap and H-1B lottery? So what is that, Mike? Cap and lottery?
Yeah, the H-1B cap and H-1B lottery would be basically referring to the same type of H-1B. There's a cap on a limit on how many H-1Bs can be issued each year, and that limit is 85,000. Of which those 20,000 is set aside for U.S. masters or PhD grads. So 65,000 for everyone else. And there's a lottery held each year. in March. We just finished the lottery a couple of weeks ago, and it truly is a lottery. So last year, we haven't seen numbers for this year, but last year, over 300,000 filings, registrations were put in for those 85,000 spots. So your odds of being picked were, less than 1 in 3. And then if you get picked, then the employer has a 90-day window to actually file for your case. There are certain institutions that are what are called cap exempt, which means they do not have to go through the lottery. Those institutions in the healthcare space are nonprofits who are affiliated with a university and who have an affiliation program in the occupation that you are working in. So for example, let's say you're a Medtech, and let's say the hospital that's going to employ you is nonprofit, and they have an affiliation agreement, but their affiliation agreement only covers doctors and RNs, and that's who does clinicals at their hospital. Then you as a Medtech would not qualify for a cap exempt visa through that hospital, because they would not be cap exempt for purposes of your occupation. So it's not every nonprofit. It's not even every nonprofit affiliated with the university. It's nonprofits affiliated with the university who have an active affiliation relative to the occupation you're in. And then those individuals can file H-1s year round because they are not subject to the lottery, not subject to the cap.
Okay, so most of this also will, as it applies to our nurses, most of this will really depend on who their employer is, right?
Yeah, and I would say that my experience here in our office is that if you take the whole body of nurses and look at EB3 RNs versus H-1B RNs, the number of H-1B RNs, it's probably less than 5% of all the nurses that are being hired, at least in our office. So there are entire systems that there are no H-1B options available. There are, it's a limited number. And then here's the thing you have to also think about from your perspective as a nurse. Even if the hospital has an H-1B offering, you have to decide, is this really the best for me and my family? So if you've got, for example, a spouse that is planning on working, and so it's you and your spouse, if you wait in the EB3 line, you both come in as green card holders. You can work immediately. Obviously, you can work for the hospital that sponsored you, or for the agency that sponsored you. Your spouse can get a job and immediately work because they have a green card. If you come in on an H-1B, your spouse can't work. There's not an H-4 work card until you get to the point of having an I-140 approved, which in some situations could be a year and a half to 2 years down the road. So you have to look and go, is that really the best for my family? And it's not going to be the best for everyone's situation.
Okay. So what are some other things that you might want to consider with an H-1B? So the spouse may not be able to work, so that's definitely a big deal if you have a family, something you want to consider. What other things might somebody who's interested in this option
definitely consider? Limited career options. So for example, let's say you come in and you're working in the NICU unit and you don't like the NICU unit, and maybe the NICU unit doesn't like you, and you want to move to, say, I don't know, a med surg unit, or maybe you have a baby and decide you want to return to work part-time, and you want to be a PRN. All those options are available in the green card, and maybe it's a temporary thing and you're going to return to full-time work later. Those are not available as H-1Bs. You can't just switch units. You also can't switch hospitals unless it's another hospital who has an H-1B and is also cap exempt. So some pretty significant career limitations on you that would not be there as a green card holder. Let's say you're working on an H-1B in a NICU unit. I like to use that as the example, and you're really good, and they decide they want to make you a clinical care coordinator. So they're promoting you. Okay. That's going to be another H-1B job, but the hospital's going to have to be willing to spend the money to move you into that position. You can't just get automatically promoted up there like you could if you were a green card holder. And the hospital may look at it and go, well, we don't have that in our budget this year, so we're going to pass on you into this promotion because we don't want to spend $8,000 to move you into this new role. With a green card holder, you could just immediately get promoted. So there are some things. And again, for certain people, the H-1B, no doubt, is faster. You could realistically be here in the U.S. working in 90 days. But there are some consequences as a result of it.
Interesting. Okay. That's I had not really heard or thought of that as another thing to think about. So it sounds like the H-1B is just a lot less flexible, which might work for some people, but if you're really looking for that flexibility, especially if you have a family, that EB3 green card is really going to probably be a better option for you, just depending on your circumstances. Okay. Thank you for that, Mike. Very interesting. So I see we have a question from Paulina. Paulina says, I signed a contract with you today. When is it better to file the I-140 petition now, as soon as possible, or wait until the start of the new fiscal year? So Mike, I think I know the answer, but I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, you want to file as quickly as you can. Because filing the I-140 gives you the priority date. The day your case is received by the USCIS is the day you get in the queue. So there's no advantage whatsoever to waiting until the beginning of the fiscal year. One of the things we say around here all the time with retrogression is control the things you can control. Take the actions that you can take, whether that means passing your English exam, getting some bedside experience, whether it means filing your I-140 as quickly as possible. All the things that are in all of our control, we want to do as quickly as we can. We can't control retrogression. We can't control how long the lines move, but we can control our part of it. And so you would want to file as quickly as possible. I know that with AMN direct hires, they only place individuals at places that already have a prevailing wage on hand. Which means that typically you're going to be filed in 30 days or under is a pretty common scenario.
Good advice for Paulina, Mike. So Paulina, there you have it. If you signed a contract, get filed ASAP. That priority date is your ticket in line. And that's the date that, you're really going to look for when the Visa Bulletin comes out. Am I current? i.e. is my date before the date on that chart? Is that said right? Yeah, before the date on that chart. Or am I not current? Is my date after? So that is really what you want to look at. So I think it would be helpful for us to look at the steps of the green card process and where retrogression is really affecting. Because as we can see, there are still steps that you can take. As Micah said, control what you can control. So for Paulina, Mike is saying number 2, do number 2, take that step, file that immigration petition. As you can see, steps 1, pre-filing. So this is all of the things that a nurse needs to do to get ready. So taking your NCLEX, getting all your forms ready, doing the interview, all of those kinds of things are step 1. Step 2 is filing your I-140 immigrant petition. So this is where Mike is saying, Paulina, take this step, get your priority date. Step 3 is the National Visa Center. This is like the secretary where all of your documents are collected and organized. That is still all happening. So you can move to step 3. And then it's really steps 4 and 5 that are affected by retrogression. This is where we're seeing that delay. This is where that Visa Bulletin is giving you the priority dates that are eligible to come up to the consulates and have their consulate interviews, and those that are still waiting. So as you can see, it affects the last steps of the process. So that doesn't mean that you can't do steps 1, 2, and 3 already and make sure that you are all ready to go. So when your ticket is called, when your date, your priority date becomes current, you're ready to move to steps 4 and 5 and eventually get to step 5, which is welcome to America, where you reach your American dream. So hopefully that little graphic is helpful for everybody in understanding where retrogression really affects. Okay, so Mike, we have a question from Christopher. Christopher says, my priority date is December 11th, 2023. He's from the Philippines. Can I apply to another country like Canada or Australia with 2-year contracts to get, oh, my light keeps going off, to get more work experience. So is this an option for Christopher or other nurses to go do a contract somewhere else and get more work experience?
Yeah, great question. So I think the first thing you want to do is you want to reach out to your account rep, your client rep, whatever the right name is, to check. Because for those of you who aren't following what Christopher is asking for, he's saying I have an opportunity to go overseas and work for 2 years. I want to find out, can I work for 2 years while I'm waiting in this line for retrogression? And since we can't predict exactly when a December 11th, 2023 date will become current, do I have at least 2 years? That's kind of the essence of his question. And I think you probably don't have 2 years, but you probably have close enough that probably your account rep will talk to you and you guys will decide what makes sense. Because keep in mind, if you're in a situation today where you're not able to get bedside care and you are able to do in a 2-year contract, get it, and it's still going to be a 1.5 year wait, then that's really close to 2 years. And there might be a trade-off where the hospital hiring you and everybody else in the AMN contacts say, yeah, it's better for you to get a 1.5 years of experience or 2 years of experience and a trade-off for making it be 6 months later. So I reach out to them. But that's a good question, and I think it's important. But there are several variables there. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind is that you don't necessarily want to change the place of your case. So you're born in the Philippines. Your case right now is probably consular processing Philippines. You're moving to Australia with 2 years. It may not be worth moving your case to Australia. Because oftentimes moving consulars cases can be, sometimes they go well, sometimes they get lost in a black hole, and it can often be quite complex. You might be better off just simply going back to the Philippines when it is time for your final interview. So good question.
Okay, so thank you, Christopher, for your question. Some good advice for Mike. And as always, make sure to consult for your individual case because as Mike has explained, there are definitely a lot of nuances that could come into play. Okay, so Mike, I see we have a question from Ashish. Ashish says, perm filed January 25, 2025, currently Medtech and US Rest of World Group. Could you please explain the timeline of an EB3?
A Medtech would not be in the US Rest of the World Group. So that information is probably not accurate. Medtechs would normally be in the EB3 category, not Rest of the World. Oh, I'm sorry, Rest of the World. You didn't say other worker. I'm sorry, I apologize. Can you throw that question back up again?
Yeah, so it's perm filed January 25.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So January 25, unlike with RNs who get a priority date when they file the I-140, Medtechs and other occupations that have to go through perm get their priority date when they file their perm. So we're talking about you get your January 2025, that becomes your priority date. So now you're in the queue. Well, you're also waiting for your perm to be processed. Right now, perms are running about 16 months. So you're not going to see an answer on your perm until probably summer of 2026. Well, on one hand, that's a long time. Perm processing is extremely slow right now. However, keep in mind that while your perm is pending, you are still moving forward in the priority date queue, in the priority date line. So the fact that your perm takes a long time doesn't overall affect how long it's going to take you to get your green card. So when your perm gets approved, say next summer, you're going to then file the I-140. There may still be no reason to upgrade your I-140 to premium because priority date of January 2025 is not likely to be current in June of 2026. So if you're looking for when do you think you'll likely be here in the U.S., I would say sometime in 2028, 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go, Ashish. There is the time. Oh my goodness, this light keeps going off. There is a timeline for you and some information from Mike. So that's great that you got the process started. And I'm sure there are lots of things that you can be doing in the meantime while you are waiting for all of that to process and eventually come to America. So I see we have lots of questions. I see we're almost running up on time. I just wanted to take a moment and throw up our guidebooks. So I know between me and Mike and Chris, we talk about a lot of different legalese, a lot of different words and verbs and terms and things that, might not always make sense. But what you can do is take a moment to download these free guidebooks from our website that go into detail all about U.S. immigration, all about the EB3 green card, about the TN visa, H-1Bs, give you all of an understanding of the abbreviations, of the processes, and it can be very, very helpful. So these are free guidebooks. Make sure to take advantage of them. They're on our website. We're going to drop the link in the chat. And this can be a great way for you to learn so that you can take matters into your own hands. Knowledge is power. So make sure that you understand exactly what you're looking at the road ahead. Okay, so Mike, I see we have a question from Hi. Hi says, hello, Kinetics. Kinetics is the international direct hire arm under AMN International. How might travel bans imposed on specific countries influence the migration patterns of nurses originating from those nations? So are there currently travel bans right now, and how might that kind of affect everybody's movements?
Yeah, they're not in effect right now. There is a lot of talk. There's, I think, a list, or they've got them different colors. But there's basically 3 lists of this is one we're definitely going to do, but they've been saying that for a while. This is one we might do if they don't do certain things. This one we might look at some point later. And it's all very arbitrary. And some of it's being done to put some pressure for varieties of reasons that have nothing to do with you or me or immigration, but that are trade related or a variety of other things. If in fact there is a travel ban in place, that effectively ends immigration from that particular country for a period of time. It'll likely be like it was during his first term. Some of the travel bans, if in fact they ever imposed, will be challenged in court. Some might be upheld, some might not be. But it would effectively end until there is a new administration that would come in that would potentially lift that ban. But there are, at least during the first travel ban, there were some exceptions based upon, do you have dual citizenship in another country? Do you have a spouse that was born somewhere else? There are a variety of things that right now, since it hasn't happened yet, we don't really have those kinds of details as to how it might be able to work with you. But generally speaking, it would simply disrupt immigration from those particular countries.
Okay, so I think key takeaway, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see what happens. Let's see how it plays out. Currently, there are no travel bans, but if that does come into play, then we will read that legislation and see how it affects our nurses coming from those particular countries. Okay, so I see Area 51 says how to get in touch with you. Well, Area 51, I'm glad you asked. You can apply on our website. It's amnhealthcare.com/international. And if you're interested in either international staffing or international direct hire, our recruiters will work with you to figure out what's going to be a good fit for you and help you apply to either of those options. So that is the good news. So I see a couple of questions asking what the process looks like generally. So I think we're going to pull up our success path and walk through what the process looks like to come to the United States. How does one really achieve their American dream? So as I said, with AMN Healthcare International, we have both international staffing and international direct hire options for our nurses. So this is our 7-step path. We've distilled it down for you. I know sometimes it can feel confusing. It can feel like a lot of anxiety, not knowing where you are or where you stand. But you can always refer back to the success path. These are the steps to come to the U.S. as a registered nurse. So step 1, the NCLEX. This is going to be your golden ticket. This is how you get started in your processing. You're going to pass that NCLEX. Once you have passed, You're going to move to step 2, which is preparing for the interview. So you are going to have submitted the best possible application to AMN Healthcare with your current work experience. Hopefully you've passed the NCLEX. You might have started studying for the English, or you might have passed it if that's something you need. You want to make yourself the most marketable that you can to U.S. employers. And then we will help match you with the best employer for you. Once you get an offer of employment, you will move to step 3, which is the visa framework. So this is where we will help you file, whether it's a TN visa if you're coming from Mexico or Canada, or a green card if you're coming from anywhere else in the world, potentially an H-1B as well. That may be an option. We will help you gather all of the correct documents. We're also going to do step 4 with you. That's figuring out how to get you your US license, get that visa screen certificate. Then we're going to move to step 5, which happens after you've had your consulate interview and your visa has been approved. This is where we prepare for the transition. We want to make sure that you're touching down in the United States with everything you need. Step 6 is the arrival sequence. So these are all of the things that we may be doing to help you to get through that initial period, so that you don't just step off the airplane and feel like, where do I go now? So that's the arrival sequence. And then step 7, enjoy and prosper. And that is really our goal for all of our international nurses. AMN Healthcare has been doing this for a long, long time. Between OGP, which is international staffing, and Kinetics, which is international direct hire, we have helped thousands of nurses. So we know what we're doing. We know how to handle retrogression, and we would be very happy to help you achieve your American dream and move through that whole success path. So if you are interested in applying, I'm going to drop that link again in the chat. It's amnhealthcare.com/international, and our recruiters are on hand, ready, and excited to help you with your application. Okay, so I see we're almost at the top of the hour, so we're going to have a couple more questions, Mike. We'll try squeeze them in. I see we have a question from Trudian. Trudian is asking, my daughter turns 21 in August, and my priority date is November of 2023. It took about 10 months for my I-140 to get approved. Will the 10 months be added to her age? And do I need to do anything to facilitate that? So I guess Trudian is worried that her daughter is going to age out before she's able to get a green card. What advice can you give to Trudian?
Yeah, so first of all, you need to make sure that your client service rep, your account manager, your attorney is aware of the age out of your daughter so that they can try to take actions that may, once you could become current, once you become DQ'd, et cetera, to try to expedite an interview. The general rule is that children have to have a visa and a green card issued by the time they're 21, or else they age out. As Trudy mentioned, there is something called the Child Status Protection Act that's been around for a long time that does add on the time you've waited for your I-140 to be approved. So instead of your child turning 21 in August of 2023, August of 2025, they will turn 21 in August plus 10 months, so June of 2026. So if they have an interview before then, all's fine. If not, there are some other things that can be looked at. But it is critical. I would say if you've got children right now, honestly, over the age of 16, 17, that you make a point to allow, because retrogression does not protect children. Children age out during retrogression. They're not protected simply because you have an I-140 filed. Okay, that does not lock them into their age or anything like that. So lots of kids will age out during retrogression. So that is an important thing. So definitely reach out. But you're correct in that the 10 months is added to the child's age.
Okay. So some people who may be watching this might be feeling a little bit concerned. I see we had a question come in from Vix, who said, if my child started college and hasn't finished when my priority date becomes current, what will happen? So a similar question. So what kind of words of advice would you have for somebody who's feeling a little bit anxious about this, who might be coming up against this aging out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a critical issue for you and your family and obviously your child. And for a child that's in college, you may simply look and say, maybe my child is better off to do college here in the US on a F1 visa than to go through the green card process. Because if the child's going to graduate from college before you are current, then odds are the child's probably going to be over 21. I'm just guessing, unless the child started college very young. So you are going to have to do some planning, and individuals, your kids may have to look at what's their own path, and you may have to decide if my child doesn't have a path to work in the U.S., is this really what I want to do? And those are tough questions, but those are the reality that we live in right now with retrogression, as long as it is.
Okay, so some things to consider, some things for our nurses to be thinking about. As always, if you have any questions, you should feel free to reach out to your attorney, reach out to your case manager, make sure you discuss all of the options, see what kind of creative solutions you might be able to come up with, and then try and figure out what your next steps will be. So I see we had a comment from Michael Reginald Cruz, who says, hi, just dropping by to say thank you. I'm now at Ochsner LSU in Louisiana. So hello to Michael. Michael is probably a kinetics nurse who was placed at Ochsner and now living his American dream. So thanks for dropping by to say hi, Michael. Hopefully you are enjoying Louisiana. What an interesting and fun place. Okay, so I see we are almost at the top of the hour. Mike, I want to give you a chance to give one last piece of advice. You know, we've talked about a lot of different things today, a lot of different topics, similar topics that we talk about every month. But I imagine there are probably a lot of nurses who are watching at home who might be feeling a bit discouraged by the Visa Bulletin not moving this month. I know I felt discouraged by the Visa Bulletin not moving this month. I was hoping to see movement. What is your last piece of final advice for these nurses who are hoping to reach their American dream? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I know this is really difficult to do, but try to avoid getting too wrapped up in all the noise that's going on right now relative to U.S. politics and U.S. immigration. Most of what is being talked about today, and 99.9% of it, has no effect whatsoever on you or your career path or your immigration path. Retrogression, we're talking right now the same time frames generally that we were talking about a year ago. So even though things may seem like they are worse and seem like things are just bad news every day in the news, and that's probably accurate, it's not bad news that affects you. So focus on your path, your career, what you want to ultimately do. I tell people all the time, think of the retrogression and the delay kind of like going to college, right? When we go to college, we know that we're going to have to spend X number of years, whether it's 2, 4, 6 if you're a master's, 8 if you're doing a PhD, to get to where we want to be at the end. And we don't like being in school for that long. We don't like paying all that money out and doing all that work. But if we want to get to the end, our end goal, we've got to go through that. And I think retrogression is a lot like that. If your end goal is I want to work in the U.S., I want to work in a U.S. hospital as an RN, this is what you've got to go through. And it is 2.5 to 3 years right now. That's the line. But focus on your path and try to avoid the noise.
I like that analogy, Mike. I think that's a good analogy. It's a journey. It's a journey to get here, but you're going to get here. I saw one last question I wanted to ask you. So sorry to go back. But I know that there's been a lot of chatter in the news about green card holders who may or may not get deported. For our nurses who are here in the United States legally on a green card, is that something that they should be at all concerned about? Have you seen this come up?
Well, the potential cancellation of a green card and the deportation of green card holders is a principle that's been around for about 50 years. So there's nothing new about this. It is generally done when someone commits a certain high crimes. So generally felonies. It can be certain misdemeanors in certain states, but they generally are serious crimes. And then they go through a process where they will try to detain you and ultimately deport you. So it is nothing new. It's making the news now, but it's something we've seen forever. So I would suggest that if you have not committed any serious crimes, that you are 100% as safe today as you were yesterday. If you have committed some crimes, then frankly, you probably deserve to be detained and removed. So try not to kill anyone today. Spouse, kid, coworker, anyone, just in general, and then you'll be fine.
Okay, well, there's some solid advice to go into the weekend with. There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Mike. We very much appreciate your time, as always, taking all the hard questions and giving us some insight and advice. We very, very much appreciate it. So hope you enjoy the rest of your birthday week and weekend.
Thanks, Danielle. See you guys.
Thank you. So as Mike is leaving us today, I also wanted to give my 2 cents of advice. We have a quote that we like to refer to on this show. It's from Tom Hanks. It's from a movie that I love, A League of Their Own. And he says, if it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. It's the hard that makes it great. I see a lot of you posting where you are watching from around the world. I see a lot of you giving such good questions. I think the fact that you are taking these matters into your own hands, you are getting the knowledge that you need, that is the first step in your journey. As we just said with Mike, this is a journey. It's not a quick trip over. It's a journey to come to the US, but it's well worth it once you are here. And we would love to help you on your journey to get here. So thank you all for joining today. Next month, we're going to have a special Nurses Month schedule. We have our AMN Academy Mondays. We have special shows on Fridays. We're going to have a photo contest, healthcare employer spotlights, exciting prizes, and more. So make sure to join us next month for Nurses Month, and Happy Nurses Month to all of our nurses around the world, and early Happy Nurses Month. Thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate the back and forth in the chat. I love to see everybody commenting. And thank you for joining us today. We have an arrivals video of our newest arrivals to the United States to show you that there are still people coming. We're still bringing people. It just might take a little bit longer, but this could be you. So I hope that you see yourselves in these videos, you see your families in these videos, and we look forward to helping you reach your American dream. Onwards and upwards, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.